Okay. Hi, Colleen. It's
Hello.
hi. It's great to see you, and I'm so happy that you and John, your husband, who shall remain invisible in the background, that the two of you have agreed to have this conversation with me. That's part of our Imagine Your Legacy series. And I am so delighted because I think that you and John are such wonderful examples of a couple who have taken your values and decided you want to make a difference, and you are making a difference both in terms of how you live your life, so your day-to-day legacy, and then also your legacy beyond your lifetime, which is fantastic. So I Colleen is a teacher and her husband is a retired postal worker, and I've worked with John and Colleen for a lot of years.
Right. Me before John.
Exactly. So Colleen, I wanted you to share some of your story, starting with who and what has made a difference in your life. What brought you and John to the place of where you're very generous on a, year over year, day to day basis, and also in terms of your plans for the future? Who had an impact on you? Where did those values come from?
Well, first would be our parents. They were very generous, not just with money, but with time. But they did it with humility. They weren't, out preaching on the corner, look what I did. Um, and I have six brothers and sisters, and we were all taught that. I've heard and continue to hear stories. Both my parents are passed away, of how they helped people in the community, as well as friends of our family. At my dad's 80th, there was a hockey player there and said that if I didn't have your dad, I don't know how I would have made it. So uh, it comes from our parents. Um, I also have a strong faith, and giving is obviously a big part of my faith journey as well. So yeah.
Hmm. That's great. That's
Yeah.
great. And can you tell a little bit too about your story in terms of how you and John decided you wanted to magnify your impact in terms of from a giving perspective?
Well, there's I guess a few reasons for that. Uh, the one place that we support is Ronald McDonald House.
Hmm.
Our son, when he was born with holes in his heart, and the Ronald McDonald House in Ottawa near Chio became our home away from home, and it was amazing. It's so just even beautifully decorated that you don't feel that you're in a hotel. People would come and cook meals for us, and it was just helped you to stay sane. And there's a lot of people whose children, are sick all their lives and they stay there. So that was one really important place that we wanted to give back to help support parents in the future. As you mentioned, I'm a teacher, and I work in the north end of Kingston and see the injustice in the world in my school, just with the marginalized people. And I love working where I work, and and John as well, want to help these people, to have get what they need. So we're supporting my school, actually, and the money is kept in, well, it's a life insurance policy, as you'll explain, and um, it's just so these people can have what everyone else has in their school. If you look at more affluent areas, parent councils can raise thousands of dollars to buy things for the kids. And I mean, it's just the location and where we are, this doesn't happen. So with this life insurance policy, they're going to have the money to do things that they need to do and get the things that these kids need to change their lives.
That's
So,
excellent.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's also fascinating for me in working with you and John, because obviously you're both on the same page and you're both so very generous. And when we talked about using life insurance to magnify your gifts, you said, oh, why wouldn't we do this? Of course we want to do this. And
Right.
it was fascinating for me because I didn't even, as long as I've known you, I didn't even know the story about your son until we actually talked about who
Right.
and what has made a difference in your life. And you talked about Ronald McDonald House. And
Right.
that was a very precious story that you shared with me, and pretty powerful and quite an impact.
Right.
So, Colleen, what do you see as being some of the barriers when it comes to people leaving a legacy? You mentioned that your parents were very generous. And so do you see some barriers? Because I know that your father passed away, and what sort of barriers do you see, given, your father
Right.
was always very generous throughout his lifetime?
Oh, I think the word needs to get out about this, because my father was, and my mom, very giving and helping people. And when he passed away, a good amount of his the money left went to the government. And I know if the conversation would have happened, with him, that he would have jumped all over this. So it I can't change what happened, but I wish that he had someone like you that, in your, just to encourage this. He would have done it in a heartbeat. And my mom too. I just say my dad, but both of them would have. So I think it's more just the conversation around it. I don't know how often this conversation happens.
Exactly.
Right.
And as we're saying, and as I mentioned to you when I asked you if you would participate, and you very kindly said yes, that's part of the purpose and the reason why we're doing this series, the Imagine Your Legacy series, because we want to encourage people to have those conversations and to be prepared to ask the questions themselves, about what do I want my legacy to be, and what are all of the options? Because as you're saying, Colleen, you didn't even realize that a charitable giving life insurance policy was an option for magnifying your gifts. So it's so important and so vitally important. And I know that you've also been wanting to get the message out to lots of people.
And I think that's the thing. It's not, I'm not on this, or John didn't want his name mentioned to say, look what we did, look what we did. It's, I want, like you do, people to know about this. It just makes the world a better place, to be honest, right?
Exactly. That's beautifully put. That's what our bottom line and our passion is all about, is making a difference in the world in all the ways that we can.
Right, right.
Anything else that you would like to say? Any final points about this whole theme of Imagine Your Legacy?
I guess the other thing, it goes with what we were saying, is that we obviously want to pass this on to our children. So I'm happy that I know about this. So then I hope that they will continue with this. I mean, that's the ultimate purpose, right? So yeah, we hope that happens, and I think it will. But it's because we had the conversation with you to begin with. And I actually tell lots of people about it now, so that's good.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you put it, because it comes down to this. If you don't have the conversation, then you won't know what all the possibilities are. And the conversation is so important to have. So I am delighted that we got to have that conversation, and recognizing that it is a process. Because, and I remember when we were talking and you were saying about Ronald McDonald House, and then you said, wait a second, we want to include the the school, to be able to support the school, which was fantastic. So I think the more we talk about it, the more we think about possibilities and the different options. So
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
thank you. I thank you
Oh,
so much.
my pleasure.